Is it time to light up Christmas yet? I think so. Hi guys, Steve here with the Scroll Saw Workshop. Put together a little lighted Christmas project here tonight on the Scroll Saw. And mainly, I've done these before, but mainly what I wanted to show you in this project is I found a good source for these little LED bases that you can buy individually that are pretty inexpensive. This one will run off of AA batteries, or in this case, I've got it plugged into a battery charger over here. And it also, of course, you can buy the little wall warts to plug them in also. I found a good source for all of this stuff, and I'll put that in the description link below. Also, the cast acrylic, this base uses 1/8 inch acrylic or glass is what fits into the slot. And I found a pretty good source for this 1/8 inch cast acrylic on Amazon, and I'll be posting that in the description below also. I'm going to have probably 5 to 10 of these different patterns that you can cut out on the scroll saw. Let me turn on the light here and give you a little better look. Okay, here's a little wall wart description for that. Here's the base, and you can see you can easily change out one pattern for another depending on the holiday or whatever. This base is plugged in to the USB charger over there. It also has a door on the back for I think 3 AA batteries, so you can run it totally mobile if you need to. And just as simple as that, you just put your piece in there and you're ready to go. Really fun project to make. I'm going to have some pictures followed up here to show you how I cut this acrylic on the scroll saw. There's one little tip that makes it a lot easier to cut than if you just try to cut the acrylic alone. So I'm going to stop the video here and I'll do a little picture slideshow to show you the actual cutting. What you see in front of you here now are the supplies you're going to need to make this project. Up at the top of the screen you'll see the LED base that I'll have a link in the description below for. If you're reading it in the blog post, the description will be in the post itself. On the left you can see, well, let's start out on the bottom. On the bottom is a large sheet of 1/8 inch cast acrylic, and the cast acrylic does work much better, so it's best to find that. Now I'll have a link for the Amazon link for that in the description below and also in the blog post. On the left you'll see that I've got a small piece of that acrylic cut out, and I just simply cut it on the table saw. It cuts fine on the table saw. You can cut it out on your scroll saw if you need to. That's no problem either. On the right, of course, is the pattern. Also on the left I've got 2 pieces of 1/8 inch thick Baltic birch plywood, and we're going to use the plywood to make the acrylic much easier to cut. We're going to sandwich the acrylic between the 2 pieces of plywood, wrap it up with some box tape, or actually some painter's tape, and then we'll apply the pattern on top of that. The reason we do that is if you just put this thin acrylic on your scroll saw table and start cutting, it really has a tendency to want to jump up and down on you pretty badly, no matter what blade you use. And in this case, the thinner the blade you use, I used a number 1 to cut this, and because there's more teeth, it actually cuts it a little cleaner. So let's use the Baltic birch plywood to make everything easier. In this picture, you're just simply seeing that I've got the acrylic sandwiched between the 2 pieces of plywood, getting ready to apply the pattern on top. So this is just a stack we're going to use. I did not remove the protective coating from either side of the cast acrylic. You might as well leave it on there till you're completely finished, just to protect the surface of it. Now you're seeing the stack that's been wrapped in blue painter's tape. You can see the acrylic there in the middle. The pattern's been applied to the blue painter's tape with just some spray adhesive. We're going to drill the entry holes. In this case, it's a very basic pattern. There's only 2 entry holes to be done, the star and then the 2 characters. So let's get the holes drilled, and then I'll meet you over at the scroll saw. Here you can see I'm over at the scroll saw. I've already begun to cut. I've got the star cut out. And to make sure we have nice sharp points, I actually started in the middle of the star, move down to the point, back the blade back out, and then bring it in on the other side of the point. That way we get nice crisp points on the star, which is pretty important on this. You don't want them rounded off. Again, the cutting is made much simpler because we've got this stack and we've got the tape to lubricate the blade. Everything's going nice and smooth. I do have the speed turned up to a pretty high rate. You don't want to build up a lot of heat, but at the same time you want that blade moving pretty good to be able to cut cleanly through the plastic. So it's a little bit of a trade-off. With the Baltic birch plywood and the tape on there, the heat's not too big of a factor, but if you get it too hot, you will burn that or melt that plexiglass or the acrylic, and it'll tend to want to stick together. At this point, we've got everything all cut out. We're ready to take the piece back over to the workbench and take the sandwich apart and see what we got. When you get back over to the workbench and you separate out the acrylic from the two pieces of Baltic birch plywood, you want to make sure you remove the protective cover from both the front and the back. It'll look dull if you don't have both sides removed, so don't overlook that. If you want to clean up the edges any at all, use 220 grit or higher sandpaper. I haven't found that necessary. The blades I'm using are cutting, pretty smooth edges. They generally look pretty good, but you can sand them a little bit if you need to. The acrylic that we're buying fits in the base pretty well, but it's just slightly sloppy. So if you want to make sure that the acrylic fits in there nice and snug, you can take some black electrical tape and put it around the bottom tab. Just wrap it around there a few times until you build up the thickness. It won't change the fact that the light gets up through the pattern. Just make sure you don't get any of the tape underneath the bottom of the tab. But you can thicken it up a little bit that way. For the most part, I found if you put it in there, it's solid enough that it wants to lean over a little bit forward or backward, but it's just slightly, and if you just push it towards the back, it looks fine. So you can give that a try if you need to. And at this point, we're just ready to go up and place it in our little LED stand. One thing I forgot to mention, those stands, the power button on the front, you can toggle it between solid lights or the deal that you saw in the video earlier where it's actually strobing between all the different colors. So just play with the button because it doesn't really come with instructions on how to use it, but you'll see how it works. I'm Steve Good. Thanks for being here with me at the Scroll Saw Workshop. We'll catch you next time.